If a lot more people would date with intention, then we would have a lot less people getting played, having their time wasted, getting their heart broken, being led on, right? And being disappointed. And so, one of the things I always aim to do is to encourage people to be more intentional with their dating and relationships. However, there's a tricky thing about this whole dating intentionally because guess what? They could intentionally be dating you just for sex. They could be intentionally dating you to use you for money. It could be intentionally dating you because they're bored. There's so many different types of intentions. So it's not just people dating intentionally, but it's also about people having genuine interest, being serious, and for you as a woman to understand what those intentions are so that you can make an informed decision on whether or not you want to move forward and deal with this man. Now, here's the thing. I know for a lot of women, you may feel like, well, we can't control these ridiculous men who are lying, playing games, leading you on, all these things. And you're right. You can't control anyone but yourself. However, there are actions you can take that would allow you to expose a man's intentions very fast. Now, if we're being real with each other, it's up to you to be willing to then accept what you're seeing or accept what you're exposing when it gets pulled out, right? But you can allow yourself to gain that clarity of at least having a good idea of what this man is trying to do with you. Now, let me make this clear before I get into this list. Nothing is 100%, right? There's no method that's going to guarantee you or guarantee every last woman that she's going to get the answer that she needs. However, these things will all increase your ability to get those answers. And in most cases, they are going to work. In the majority of cases, they are going to work. Because the reality is this: men, women, whoever, no one's really that good of a liar if you know how to challenge them, how to pull things out of them. And following this list is going to help you with that. So let's get right to it. And one of the fastest ways you can expose a man's intentions is by asking him. Now, I know some of y'all like, whatever, it ain't that simple. And I get that, but let's talk about this for a second. Though there are a lot of men who are liars and manipulators, and notice I'm acknowledging that they exist, but that's not majority of men. As much as some of y'all may not want to believe that, and though that may have been the experience for the majority of men that you personally dealt with, the majority of men aren't trying to hurt, manipulate, use all these different things. I would argue the majority of men want a real relationship. But anyways, we'll say that for a different time. The point is, when you simply ask the question, what are your intentions? You will get most men to give you an answer, especially in today's age, where I would argue more and more men are finding less reasons to outright lie because, again, I know there's pushback, because let's just use the example. If his intentions are purely sexual, right? A lot more men nowadays have other options. So they don't have to, like back in the days where you met a woman or a man meets a woman that he really wants and he's getting a chance with. He doesn't have access to a bunch of different women or bunch of different options. It's like he has to make this work by any means necessary. That's his mentality, okay? So he's more inclined to just say and do whatever necessary to reach the end goal. In today's world, due to the internet and the way that we are so connected, which is good and has its bad, right? It decreases how many men feel that desperate to have to just blatantly lie when you say, what are your intentions? So tons of women have asked that question before, and they have received answers such as, well, I'm just trying to enjoy myself right now, or right now I'm not looking for anything serious. Some may say, well, I'm looking to find a wife, or I'm looking for a real relationship. Some may use what I call the dreaded phrase, let's just go with the flow, right? And some of you may have said before, let's go with the flow, but I always say the go with the flow one is dangerous because it's so vague. It's so vague, and a lot of women get themselves in trouble trying to just quote unquote go with the flow. Either way, what you will find is when you talk to women who have actually asked the question, they have received an answer that gave them insight into what this man's intentions are. The problem is that one, a lot, if not most women, are not asking that question. And then two, after they ask and receive an answer, they're not accepting the answer for what it is. So this may be you, or this may be someone you know, family member, where they'll ask a man, okay, what are your intentions? He says, right now, I don't really want a relationship. I'm just trying to take it slow right now. I just want to go out, enjoy ourselves. And that woman either convinces herself that, in order to look past that, she will either convince herself that she's okay with the whole, all right, well, let's just have fun, or maybe that's how she feels. That's how she's feeling about where she's at in life as well. Or she will choose to want to believe that, okay, maybe if I stick around, put it on him, do whatever good things to him, he will eventually want to be with me for real. Okay? And that is the mistake so many make. But again, the question itself will get answered by most, and will get answered honestly by a lot more than you think. So do not be afraid to ask him, what are his intentions? All right, so here's one of the other fastest ways to expose a man's intentions, and that is to wait to be intimate. Okay? Now, for some of you, depending on what your spiritual beliefs are, you may already be on the path where it's like you're trying to wait till marriage. Okay? Now, though I understand that's the ultimate goal, that's what we're ultimately called to do, I always acknowledge and express how I understand the fact that most don't, right? We're not here to argue right or wrong. We're not here to judge. I'm just here to acknowledge most aren't waiting all the way till marriage. Hell, some aren't even waiting till it's an official relationship. Either way, I'm not judging. I just want to address it from where people are or how people are going about it. So let's, in this discussion, consider, let's leave out the waiting till marriage simply because that's a more far down the line thing. But if that's your position, of course, let that be known to a man. But if you are someone who's not waiting that long, still wise to wait before you are intimate. Now, here's why this will help in exposing his intentions. Let me first acknowledge the fact that I know you'll hear a lot of men say, and it's true, that even if you make him wait, he may wait with you, but that doesn't stop him from going to sleep with somebody else. This is very true, all right, in many cases. However, as a woman, you have to understand that your goal in waiting is not in controlling what he does or doesn't do. Because if you guys are not even in an official relationship, he technically has the right to do as he pleases. All right? I understand some may not agree with that, some may not like that, and you are free and have every right to express that concern up front with any man. However, the fact still remains that if there is no official relationship, people are going to do what they're going to do. But that's not why you wait. You wait because, one, it will weed out the ones who aren't even going to play the I'll wait for you while I do it elsewhere. Because again, there's a lot of men who won't even bother. If their intention with you is purely sexual and you're saying, nah, I have to wait to get into bed with someone, there's at least a huge segment of those men who will just fall off. Who'll be like, all right, this is wasting my time. I'm not going to do it. So you already exposed those guys for what they were really about. All right. Now there's that second layer, second segment of men who, all right, they'll wait, but again, they'll do it with someone else or whatever the case may be. So it at least helps in you exposing some things. But even more so, the other reason why you wait, again, aside from the spiritual aspect, is that it allows you a greater level of clarity in evaluating and seeing what his intentions are. Because the fact of the matter is, intimacy for tons of people clouds their judgment, plain and simple. And let me say, I think when we say clouds judgment, people automatically think about the sex being good and that kind of frying your brain, right? And now you can't think straight because you're craving that intimacy with him. but it can cloud your judgment even when it's bad. And let me just lay this out for you for a second. There are tons of situations, and this has happened to both men and women, who by jumping into bed quickly, before they were truly comfortable, confident, ready, whatever, right? Their performance wasn't really up to a certain level. I'm just keeping it real. And there's been tons of people who have eliminated or who have decided not to continue dating someone because the intimacy was not great. But the crazy thing is, it's not, in many cases, it's not because it can't be great or can't be greater. It's just that if people sleep with each other when they are not truly comfortable, right, or confident, or even in tune with each other, well, guess what? There's a greater chance of there being a disconnect in the bedroom. And if that is done before someone has had an opportunity to determine that they really, really like you, because let's face it, the more you like someone, the more flexible you become, the more patient you become. But if we jump to that before we really establish that level of true like, before we understand there's a connection here, well, then that diminishes the chances of someone being willing to look past that or to convince themselves maybe this can get better, it just needs time. You see what I'm saying? So for that reason, for your ability to evaluate, for seeing if he's going to even stick around, waiting will, again, expose a lot of men's intentions and allow you to see things more clearly. Okay, so here's another uh, great, fast way to expose a man's intentions, and that's to ask him all the questions you have. All right. So we talked about previously, flat out asking him what his intentions are. And that's a great way to get the ball rolling. But the reality is that there's so many more questions that will come up while dating someone. And unfortunately, so many women are afraid to ask questions. And again, this happens on both sides, but we're talking to women right now. And so some of that fear stems from not wanting to rock the boat. Like, it's like if you meet someone, everything's going great, you're kind of hesitant to ask certain questions that you know if you hear the wrong answer is going to derail everything. So at the very least, you start putting those questions off. Or you feel like if I don't want to come across thirsty, or I don't want to look needy, or I don't want to seem desperate, or whatever the case may be, and that stops you from asking questions. Or you feel like last time you asked the guy this kind of question, it scared him off. So even asking him what his intentions are is something that women struggle with because they feel that maybe that's going to push him away or make him feel like you're moving too fast. And to all of that, I say, if someone is serious about trying to be with you, they're not going to be run off by your questions. However, however, there's a caveat to this. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. So, of course, if you're coming across very negative, like you're interrogating, if you're projecting negative responses onto him, and what I mean by that is sometimes as a woman, you're so fixated on bracing yourself for a bad response that you're coming in with that energy and it's like you're projecting that onto him, but you don't realize you're throwing off the whole conversation with your energy, with your spirit, because you keep assuming it's going to be something bad. Instead, I would tell you or encourage you to go into every question with an open and positive mindset. Yes, we have to be prepared that there might be an answer we don't like, and simply if that happens, we address it, or we get the clarity we need to walk away, whatever the case may be. But you can't come into it expecting or projecting that. And I'll just give you one quick story. I had a friend who she was abstinent or celibate. I always confuse which one's which. She was a virgin until 38, something like that. All right. Either way, um, when she was, let's say years before that, when she would go on dates and she would tell men that she's waiting till marriage, she said the men would run off. They would always just leave and end it. And I said to her, I said, I acknowledge the fact that there's a lot of men who don't want to deal with that and they're not interested in that. But I said, I honestly feel that you're projecting a certain energy onto them, and you're actually creating this, unfortunate response to the situation. And at first, she was resistant to that, to what I was saying. But I said, no, just give it a try. Like next time you talk to a guy, and you tell him, I want you to own it, be confident, think positive. Don't have that like guardedness when you bring it out. So she did. And lo and behold, she told me, she said she noticed men weren't running anymore. Even the ones who expressed hesitancy and was like, man, I don't know if I could do this, but it was a very different vibe than what she was getting before by simply changing how she was coming into it and asking the question. But anyways, that's something to be mindful of in any question you ask. But you cannot be afraid. You have to be willing to express yourself. And here's the beautiful thing about asking questions. So I actually just did a podcast, another one with Jay Shetty. It's going to be, I don't know when it's going to drop. But we talked about this issue of not asking questions. And he expressed how he had a business relationship where he found himself doing that, where he was afraid to ask certain questions because he didn't want to rock the boat. But then he finally got over that fear. He did it. And what he saw was that by asking the questions, if you are dealing with a good person, the right person, it will strengthen the relationship. It will make things better, not worse. So we're so afraid and running from the possibility that this is going to blow everything up. And I would argue if it's going to blow it up, then that means it's not for you. So it's a blessing. But we're not considering how if we can get past this hump, and these questions are addressed and answered well, we're going to be in an even better place with this person. And it's going to be greater levels of transparency, and it's just going to make things so much more peaceful and healthy. So do not be afraid to ask questions, and know that, yes, the questions will make it easier to expose his intentions. All right, so let's keep this thing going. And another fast way to expose a man's intentions is by letting him know what your intentions are. So, I don't know, I feel like some of y'all like took a step back on this one. But anyways, here's what's interesting about this whole dating with intentions discussion. When you hear people talk about it, they always seem to be pointing it more towards the men. All right. And the men need to be more upfront and straightforward and being serious and all these things, which I don't necessarily disagree with. But it completely overlooks the fact that the woman has to be intentional too. Now, you may say, well, I am intentional. I know what I want. I know exactly what I'm doing here and what I'm trying to accomplish. The problem is if he doesn't know, that can still throw things off. And it will certainly make it harder for you to see his intentions. Now, we can look at it from two different angles. One, let's just say your intention is to be married. You want to find your future husband. You want marriage. You believe in it. You also want eventually to have kids, all these things. Okay? By letting a man know what your intentions are, and again, I feel the need to say, it's not what you say, it's how you say it, because some women don't realize that when they're expressing it like don't waste my time, this is what I want, and if you ain't gonna step up, get the hell out of here. Like the attitude, the stankness is coming off of you, and that's pushing the guy away. But expressing yourself in a calm, loving, and confident manner about, hey, I'm pretty much looking for someone that I can settle down with, marry. My goal is to have kids. Boom, boom, boom. No man who is serious is going to take issue with that. So, anyways, let's get back to the angles. You say to a man, "Hey, I'm looking for something serious, marriage, kids, boom, boom, boom." If he does not want that, even without him expressing his intentions, you have made it more likely for the guy who's not serious to walk away. Because again, a lot of men, especially in today's age, if all their intentions are physical, they're going to see this as, okay, she knows what she wants. I'm not on that. We're not on the same page. He knows there's a potential for this to get messy. He's more likely to say, I'm not going to bother with this because you were so clear with where you stand. All right. On the flip side, you say it to a man who wants it too. And here's something that people don't consider. A lot of women don't think about the fact that there have been, just as a woman may concern herself with, well, I don't want to come across too forward and too strong, there are men who have the same fears. Because the assumption is that, oh, well, if men were just, there's not enough men who are being serious and upfront. But what's not being considered is that there are plenty of men who have done that and then seen the woman run, seen it backfire on them. Now, of course, if I'm speaking to those men, I'm going to say, hey, listen, that just shows she wasn't for you. She was on the same page as you. However, as you may have experienced before, when you're going through that, it now makes you cautious to be that straightforward in the next situation. So what happens sometimes is, I'm not saying always, but sometimes, is you'll have a man who actually has genuine, serious intention. But because he's not trying to come across too strong, he's dialing it back. He's trying to play it cool. And now for you, because you're not letting him know how you feel, he doesn't know if you're the woman who just wants to have fun. Because again, though you may not be able to fathom that, there are tons of women out there who are looking for a man just for company, just for intimacy, just for some bills paid, whatever the case may be. He doesn't know what your intentions are. So all it does is create this lack of clarity between two people. So, and yes, if I was speaking to the men, I would tell them to still be intentional, but because I'm speaking to you, I'm going to say, no, you got to let it be known where you stand, how you feel. Because then if he's serious, that just took all the pressure off him. He's like, oh, okay, we on the same page. Now I can be forthcoming that I want the same things too. Boom, we're good to go. You see what I'm saying? So either way, you're exposing it faster. You're making it easier for you to see what you are getting yourself into. So be honest and forthcoming about that, and that will make things so much easier. All right, so let's keep this thing going. Another fast way to expose a man's intentions is to be your authentic self. All right. So let me bring some clarity to this. Simply being yourself without some of the other stuff probably won't be enough to see where he stands, right? What his intentions are. However, it will make it easier for you to see if you two really click and can do well together and really on the same page, all right? Which in many ways will then in turn show you what his intentions really were to some extent. Or at least, again, it'll just help you not waste any time. Either way, the point I'm trying to get at here is this. Too many women go into dating and relationships not truly being themselves. And I have to stop right here and say this. For some of you, it's because you don't even know who you are. And I say that with love and not to hurt your feelings, but it's just the reality of it. Many of you, for some of you, your whole life has been relationship to relationship to relationship, never really taking time to yourself to figure out who you are. For others of you, you've been dealing with the outside noise, as I call it, family, friends, society, telling you what you're supposed to be, but it's at conflict with what really speaks to your heart and who you truly are. And I always say, for people, it's not about finding who you are. In most cases, it's about accepting who you are. We know certain things about ourselves, but we aren't fully embracing it because, again, we may not be confident about it. We may have been told by somebody else that this was not good. One way or another, we're suppressing who we are, or we are in denial of it, okay? And I always say, you cannot suppress your true self forever. It's gonna come out. At some point, it's gonna come out. And if you are dealing with someone, who you were able to get with under essentially false pretenses, because if you're not being yourself, then you're selling them a dream, all right? And what they think they're signing up for is not what they're really signing up for. And at some point, it's gonna come out. And let me tell you, when you're seeing some of these marriages fall apart and it's shocking, oh, I can't believe it, they seem so happy together, all these different things. Again, I'm the guy who gets to see behind the scenes a lot, a whole lot. A lot of those situations are just that. Are two people who either did not know themselves or who were not fully being themselves and getting to a place where they can't do it anymore and realizing their true selves don't fit. It doesn't work. it's at complete conflict with each other. Okay, and everything will then fall apart. But it was set up to fail because that was missing from the beginning. So, excuse me, you can eliminate so many unnecessary situations, drawn out relationships, a potentially unhappy marriage, you name it, by from the jump being your authentic self. And let me say, this kind of connects to you expressing your intentions because, again, for many women, you're not being yourself because you're not expressing or accepting what your intentions are. So there's a lot of women who deep inside want marriage, want a serious long-term relationship, but are convincing themselves, nah, I'm good, or nah, I don't need that right now. And it's like, but that's not how you really deep inside feel. You got to come to terms with that, because what's going to happen is you're going to have these moments of struggle where you're going to say, okay, you know what? I don't need a relationship. So you're going to entertain someone who can't give you one or who won't give you one. And you're going to have moments where you're like, I want one, okay? And now you find yourself frustrated with this individual, but they was always telling you that they weren't going to give you one or they weren't interested in that. And it just creates this ongoing conflict and messiness. At the end of the day, be your true, authentic self, and that's going to help you see who he is more and where this can go. All right, got a few more to go. And so another fast way to expose a man's intentions, and this is a tricky one, so stay with me here. Not holding back and seeing if he reciprocates. All right, now, here's why this is tricky. I am a full believer in we gotta stop with all this girlfriend, boyfriend behavior, or let me backtrack. All this husband-wife behavior when we're not even husband-wife yet. All right. And in many cases, we're not even boyfriend, girlfriend yet. There's a lot of people, what I would consider doing too much. However, this is why it gets tricky, because in principle, that makes complete sense. In practice, it's not that it's not that simple, because today's relationships, and this is specifically for people who are already in a boyfriend girlfriend relationship, too many relationships, and you could argue this is even happening in the dating phase. They've turned it into pseudo marriages, as I call it. They're mimicking marriage just without the full commitment of marriage. Okay. And so if you have a man who, let's just say in this example, he is providing for you, he's paying some bills, he's taking care of you, he's a good man, it would be hard for me to then turn around and say to you, how dare you cook for him, right? How dare you clean this up for him? Like, if he's doing for you, I get it. I get it, right? The problem is when it's the woman or the man, but let's just say in this case, the woman doing for a man who does not do for her. Okay? So now again, it's tricky, because I do think you have to have at least moments of giving to someone to see how they receive and how they give back. All right? And it's not saying that we're doing this simply for the purpose of receiving something in return. But we have to understand if this individual knows how to reciprocate in a relationship. It also helps you see if you're dealing with a man who is using you. Because I would argue, if, let's just say, for example, you decide to cook for this man. And again, let me also say this. I'm a firm believer, you don't have to consistently cook for a man to show him that you know how to cook. You don't have to consistently do certain things for a man to show him you have those qualities as a wife, right? So don't fall into that trap of thinking, well, I have to do this as a performance or an audition for what? No, you can cook one good meal and he can see, oh, or you can cook for yourself and he sees, oh, she knows how to handle herself and hold down her household, whatever the case may be. But let's just say you make some food for this man, you help him with some stuff, whatever the case may be. And now when you need something from him, he's like, got excuses. I would argue if the man is serious about you, he's going to find ways to pour back into you. He's not just going to take and not return. All right. If he is not returning, love, doing for you, providing, whatever, he's probably using you. Right now, the one argument I can hear some of y'all say, well, what if he's just broke and don't have nothing to give, right? Again, providing isn't just financial. There are other ways to pour into someone, to be an asset to someone, to lessen the burden off of someone's back. So if he's not finding some way, or at least, again, it's one thing for him, he should be taking some initiative. But if he can't even respond to the call when you are requesting something of him that's completely reasonable, then that's a problem. That's a huge problem. So what I'm saying here is by giving and not holding back, right? Because also here's the problem with holding back. A lot of women, again, it goes back to not being yourself. Some of you are very nurturing, giving, loving, like naturally your levels of it are just very high. I think all of you are capable, but some are going to be much higher than others, okay? And so there are some who have to like try to really restrict themselves. And I think it's tricky because that can get unhealthy to a certain extent. And that's why I think we have to be very clear and talk about these things. So even if you're not doing, expressing how you understand or this is how you envision your role or your position in a relationship or with someone that you are seriously committed with. So he understands, no, you do believe in these things, but you're not going to engage in them at this phase of the dating or relationship process because we're not at that next level yet. To me, that's a great discussion to have, all right? But again, I do think at least having moments of giving and seeing, does she show appreciation? Is he willing to pour back? Can do great things for you in seeing what his intentions are and where he really stands with you. And so here's another very important, fast way to expose a man's intentions, and that is to talk to God and trust your intuition. Now, let's start with trust your intuition because if we're being honest, for most of you, that will be your experience first before talking to God. Not saying, for some of you, you might go straight into prayer, but for many of you, well, for people in general, when we're dating, right, especially when things are going well and they feel good, it's very easy not to go to prayer to ask God what you should be doing here. If anything, if you're praying, it's like, God, let this work. Let this be the one, right? You're hoping for good things, but you may not be asking flat out, is he the person for me? So with intuition, many of you, I always say, as a woman, your intuition is very strong, it's powerful. You could know off the first conversation, this guy is not for you. And it simply boils down to, will you trust your intuition or will you look past it? Now, I understand that there's always the fear of, well, how do I know it's me? Or how do I know it's my intuition versus just me talking to myself? And I will say this, healing from your past will help you get more in tune with your intuition. Healing from your past will help you see through people's games and words a lot easier. It will help you in exposing a man's intentions. Like it could be its own separate point, but I'll just, mention it here. So understand if you have that fear and concern, that's one thing that's going to help you big time. But then also it's kind of practice. Like you have to get into a comfort zone with trusting your intuition. And the more you do it, the easier it'll get. All right. So in every little thing that you do in your life, when your intuition hits, listen to it. Right. And you're going to get to see over time that, oh, my intuition was right. Oh, okay. Thank God I did that thing. And that's going to give you more strength and faith when you hear it. But then the next step in trying to help you understand if that's really your intuition, which to me, your intuition is your spirit, or your own mind, is talking to God, is praying, is flat out asking God, is this the man for you? Now, let me tell you this. A lot of women, when they go in prayer, they do what I call passive praying, meaning they'll ask God, God, show me a sign, right? It's passive in the sense of, I'm going to pray, make my petition to God, and I'm going to go about my life, and hopefully something just randomly hits me over the head or just happens that will show me this is what I'm supposed to do. The problem with that, unfortunately, is that leaves things up for interpretation. And plenty of people can interpret what they think is a sign incorrectly. Okay? I also always say, Be careful asking for signs because the devil can throw up billboards too. So you got to be careful just jumping to the conclusion that this occurrence means this is the sign because it connects to this thing or this person or whatever the case may be. So I highly encourage praying in a way that you can receive the answer in prayer in your spirit. We won't get all deep into that whole dynamic right now. I'm planting a seed for some of you to look into that, to take that approach to help you with better connecting and hearing God so that you can see more clearly what kind of man you're dealing with, who the man is for you, and how you can receive what is best for you. Hey, thank you for watching this video. I pray it was helpful to you. Be sure to watch this one over here on You Trigger a Man's Emotions with Your Absence in these 5 ways. Maybe you, maybe someone you know, have dealt with a man or held on to him or dealt with him longer than they should have, right? And allow